Welcome everybody to Game Break. I'm Mike Salas.
Steven Reyes here.
And we're here to break down your last week's divisional wildcard matchups.
Well, last week we had the Los Angeles Flash versus the New York Predators and the St. Louis Ballers versus the Chicago Rush. Both games were really interesting at some points. Go.
Last week was a very intense week. As expected, we had the top teams from the AFC, over 100. Yes, the Chicago Rush got over 100, which was a surprise.
Yeah, it was.
I wasn't really expecting that from the Rush. The St. Louis Ballers really didn't do anything that much, but they had a good run. They were an unpredictable team.
Yes, inconsistent team.
Inconsistent, but they were there. They put themselves in a position to win, and they got through with it. Some key players that the St. Louis Ballers had were Steven?
Michael Turner from Atlanta, running back. Tremendous pick, first round pick.
The guy's picking it up. He has over 7 touchdowns in his last 4 games.
Drew Brees had a solid week also with 16 points.
The thing is with the St. Louis Ballers, when you build a team, Drew Brees, Michael Turner, Greg Jennings in your first 3 picks, you're looking at a team that can possibly go far.
Again.
But you gotta stick with your guys. Even though Greg Jennings had over 10 catches in his first 5 weeks, he had about 10, 12 catches in his first 5 weeks. He had 2 touchdowns, but it wasn't enough for the owner Marcus Talamus to keep him, and he dropped him. And the Boston Outlaws organization ended up picking him up. And look what that's happened. Greg Jennings is a top 5 wide receiver right now.
Yes.
But he's a new owner, Marcus Talamus. He'll learn from this.
First year in this fantasy league, so it's tough loss for him. But I think he'll pull through. And better luck next season.
And as for the other side, the Chicago Rush had the Chicago Rush scored 102. They ended up winning the game 102-71. Big performances.
Deshaun Jackson had a tremendous game, 27 points. Very key to his win this past week.
Do you think he can do it again? You think Deshaun can do it again?
I don't know. Maybe. I think Michael Vick has been on a tear, and the Eagles as well. Michael Vick has been insane these past couple of weeks, and I think he would. I think so.
But it's in New York.
Yeah, that's one.
Against the Giants. In the Meadowlands. In unpredictable weather.
However, one thing I must tell you is that the New York Giants did have a Monday game, rescheduled Monday game at Detroit versus the Vikings. So they're actually in short notice. One day, they had 1 day extra. They have 1 day less to recuperate. And in New York, it's pretty hard to win in New York. However, I think they would pull through. I think Deshaun Jackson will have maybe a 12-point, 13-point game.
All right, but we'll leave the rest of the predictions for later on in the show. And let's take it back now to New York Predators versus the Los Angeles Flash. Great game, as we said earlier in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Big game. LA managed to pull it through. It's hot. Dumb and Miami Vipers are hot.
Yes. You have a 7-game win streak, Vipers going into the playoffs, and then you had, I think, a 5-game win streak for the Flash going into the playoffs.
The Flash had a 5-game win streak, but then they faced the divisional juggernaut in the Boston Outlaws.
Yes.
And they happened to Boston Outlaws beat them. Even though the St. Louis Ballers, the Los Angeles Flash, and the Chicago Rush, all 3 teams said that they were going to their players were taking rest that final week of the season. Mm-hmm. While the Miami Vipers, New York Predators, and Boston Outlaws were fighting. But I guess the LA Flash really were taking a break because they just beat the New York Predators.
Yeah, I guess.
If Miami and Boston fall this week, we can't say much about Chicago and LA.
Division, yeah.
Can't be talking about those guys.
Exactly. Key performances of New York Predators and the Los Angeles Flash game was Michael Vick with 21 points. You had Chris Johnson, even with his, I think 5-point game or 2-point game last week, pulled through with 23 points.
It's big.
Against Indianapolis. Also, you had the Saints. Both defenses from both teams showed up. Saints for New York Predators, 24 points, and Steelers for the Flash with 30 points. You know, both defenses did show. It was a key part to the win. Both defenses were the highest, points in their game. But it was a defensive game, you could say.
So now, but what we take from this is LA moves on. Chicago moves on. Two teams going different directions at the end of the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
One winning 5, the other one losing 5.
Losing 5.
But they still managed to get to the next round.
Mm-hmm.
LA played against New York, a team that ended the year 9-4, top team, and LA beat them in New York, with the weather being crazy as it is. Chicago, not that far. St. Louis went to Chicago. Chicago won a home game. It's good for them. But the thing is, I see here is Chicago during the season won 2-0 against St. Louis Ballers. They beat them twice, so it was already put in there that they can beat this team, especially at home.
Yes.
Now Chicago goes in to face a Miami Vipers team that Chicago got swept by in the regular season.
2-0.
2-0. Now LA goes and plays Boston, which the series was tied 1-1. That can go anywhere.
It's gonna be pretty interesting. It's gonna be pretty interesting to see how it goes.
LA has good things ahead of them. Chicago has good things ahead of them. These are two of the most premier teams in the league. These are two teams that people know of. LA finally got their stuff back on track. The ownership of LA stayed with their head coach and they stayed with their general manager. And you know what? It paid dividends. It did because Joel Rodriguez was on the hot seat.
Yes,
there it is.
he was.
2-5. He was about to sell his team. If one more loss would have came in, about to sell his team. Ray Rice was already on trade blocks, and this guy managed to put it through. A 5-game win streak, put himself in position to win. Quite frankly, one of the most talented teams to never make it to the playoffs. Oakland Bravehearts. The 2010 Oakland Bravehearts.
They had a good run.
Never under 80 points ever this season. And they're not in the playoffs.
It's a shame.
It's a talented team.
Tough breaks. Tough losses.
Alright, guys.
One last thing. I just want to give the new owners, good luck. Good luck for next season. Panos Muchachos from the New York Predators and Marcus Thanos from the St. Louis Ballers. Muchachos.
Well, that's the Greek version of saying
Greek
it's after you set the pot up.
Yeah. Just want to, thank you guys for coming to the Fantasy League. You guys proved us wrong. Proved the owners wrong of the league, Mike Salas. And, you guys made it to the playoffs. 2 GSC members, and it was great. It was great you guys coming. You guys couldn't pull through in the end. But I have no doubt in my mind that next year you guys are going to pull through.
Stephen Reyes just brought up, Stephen Reyes, the general manager, brought up a good point. He had told me about a weekend earlier that, 3 out of the 6 teams in the postseason, 3 of them belong to the brand new owners. And that's big. That's really big from these guys. And I do give respect when it's due, and that they deserve respect. But, very important, they did not do anything in the playoffs. And you don't earn respect until in the playoffs you show up. That's what's being said about Boston. Boston is
0-3
in the playoffs all
time.
History
of Boston.
Even though this team is the best regular season team, by far best record, over 6 games ahead of the next team in the regular season, they have no titles. They have no victories in the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's going to be big. Miami Vipers have been in the playoffs once. They have not won. LA has won in the playoffs. One of the most teams that have won the most in the playoffs. And Chicago Rush have won the most in the playoffs as well.
And one of the best teams, Las Vegas Kings, didn't even make it to the playoffs this year. And they're one of the best teams, franchises. But this year they had a
two times in a row. Or they have the first pick next year.
Yeah.
The top 4 picks of next year's NFL draft belong to number 1 Las Vegas Kings, aka King James. They have the first pick. Michael Vick, possibly. I don't know. Number 2, we have the Hawaii Islanders. Maybe under new ownership. Maybe. I don't know. It's a little too early to say. Number 3, we got the 305 All-Star Ballers. And number 4, we got Oakland Bravehearts. Oakland is such a talented team, finishing the top 4 at least for the draft. They can probably recoup there. I won't be surprised to see Aaron Foster go to number 4 to them.
I don't know. I think Aaron Foster is for sure top 3 pick. For sure top 3 pick. But
that's for another time.
That's for next year.
And right now we're gonna leave you with that, guys. And please enjoy yourself. Have a great time and and have a great time, guys.
Yes. High tower. So.